Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 213 of Manage the Wild. I'm your host, Nick Manson. Today, we're going to be talking about the importance of riparian zones for big game species and ecosystems in general. And riparian areas are areas of water, whether it's a stream, a river, a trickle, whatever. But it's these areas that have water in them continuously, and they are super important and vital to healthy habitats, healthy ecosystems, as well as healthy big game population species. So, riparian areas, these zones play a big role in supporting big game species, whether it's deer, elk, moose, it doesn't matter. They are playing a huge role in their life. One, they provide a lot of food because these areas have so much nutrients passing through down these streams and rivers, as well as moisture. You can have a huge amount of biodiversity, and you see that it's not just a monoculture. What happens is it becomes degraded by cattle overgrazing or sheep or elk or whatever it may be, and you start to get this monoculture and a reduction in biodiversity. But a healthy system will have huge amounts of biodiversity, which is important because it'll have food for deer, it'll have food for elk, and it's going to have food for moose and all the other species that are using these riparian areas. Water access is super important. Places like southern Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Southern California, Texas, they don't have necessarily as much water, and species could be healthier if they have access. So these riparian areas are definitely important in areas that are lacking or usually going through drought conditions. Nevada, there are areas that have been overused, and so they've been degraded to the point to where the water doesn't make it all the way down. And so these animals are not having the nutrients nor the moisture they need to be able to survive. They are going in and bringing beavers in or creating dams, healthy dams that are allowing these riparian areas to build themselves back up to be healthy and a good ecosystem. Another thing that I've noticed is they provide a lot of shelter and cover. During the day, the area that I work in, near the riparian areas, you will go into those areas and there's so much cover that it's hard to see the does and the fawns, but that's the area that these guys are using because it's so thick and so much cover that it provides safety for them, and it's difficult for predators to sneak up on them. They also allow for migration corridors. Now, when I was reading about migration corridors and rivers are important, I was like, I didn't fully understand, but then I remembered we have whitetail moving into the area that we live in here in Utah, and whitetail are not very prominent here. They're coming out of Wyoming. And the whitetail deer that we are getting, they are following the rivers, and they are following these riparian areas and branching out from there. So they are using these areas to move about. And so they are important migration corridors. Because oftentimes that's the only corridor that will allow for them to move through an area, because sometimes we've blocked everything else due to building and other causes, fences, who knows what. They're important for reproduction. Oftentimes when I see mule deer, they're fawns, they're giving birth because there's so much cover and so much biodiversity in these areas that they are able to go in there, give birth to their fawns, and able to provide a safe environment for them. The thicker the cover, the less amount of scent and movement of that scent, because it's so dense in there that it provides a reduction in the overall scent that they are giving away by being in that area. And then again, biodiversity is extremely high in these riparian areas. There are some challenges, though, that these riparian areas are facing. Some of them we've talked about: habitat degradation, whether it's human activities, four-wheelers coming in, driving through rivers, tearing them up, trucks passing through, showing off to their buddies. There's also overgrazing, cattle, feral horses causing wildlife are also causing issues. And then some of the other issues are agricultural in general. Sometimes waste is produced and sometimes spilled into these rivers, whether it's manure or other chemicals are being dumped in, and that can have an overall impact on your biodiversity within those riparian zones. But there are success stories. We're seeing it all over. Multiple articles have shown in Nevada where they are using beavers, and in other states they're using beavers to help bring back some of these riparian areas. As they create these dams, these beavers create dams, they are holding more water, and it's allowing that riparian area to come back to increase that biodiversity. And as they spread, more water creates a better ecosystem. And so we're seeing that as well. Now we've just covered a lot. But to sum it up, here's what I got. Riparian zones are the lifelines for big game species. They are vital resources that help the benefit of big game species and the overall ecosystems and their habitats. So that's all I got for you guys today. Before we take off, if you've liked this episode, share it with your friends and family. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Subscribe to the podcast. If you have questions, let me know. Hit me up, and I will do best to answer your guys' questions. All right, you guys, have a great day. Stay wild.